Hi everyone, welcome back to Pine Hat. I hope you're all doing well. Tonight, we're embarking on something truly special. We're going to explore the forgotten faces of Gravity Falls, the characters who appeared, made their mark, and then vanished into the weird Oregon woods, never to be seen again. Gravity Falls introduced us to hundreds of characters over its 2 seasons. Some became icons: Bill Cipher, the Pines family, Suze, Wendy. But for every character who stayed in the spotlight, dozens more faded into obscurity. They showed up for an episode, sometimes just a scene, and then disappeared without explanation. What happened to them? Where did they go? Did they survive Weird Mageddon? Are they still out there, somewhere in the forests of Gravity Falls, living their strange lives? Tonight, we're going to find out. We're going to examine every forgotten character from the show, the one-off villains, the mysterious creatures, the background townspeople who deserved more screen time, the mythical beings who appeared and vanished like dreams. This is going to take a while, so settle in, get comfortable. But before we begin, I'd just like to kindly ask you to subscribe. It's completely free and it really helps us improve the videos for this wonderful community we've managed to build. Alright, let's begin. Let's start with one of the most genuinely terrifying creatures Gravity Falls ever introduced. A monster born from rejection, made of discarded candy, hungry for revenge. The Summerween Trickster. Gravity Falls has its own version of Halloween called Summerween. The town loves the spooky holiday so much that they celebrate it twice a year, once in October like everyone else, and once in the middle of summer. They carve watermelons instead of pumpkins. They trick or treat in the July heat, and they have their own terrifying mascot. The trickster appears in the episode Summerween, and from the moment he shows up, you know something is deeply wrong. He's tall, impossibly tall. His body is thin and angular, covered in a dark cloak. His face is a grinning jack-o'-lantern mask that never stops smiling. And he has one demand: collect 500 pieces of candy by the end of the night, or he will eat everyone alive. This isn't an empty threat. Early in the episode, the trickster demonstrates exactly what he means. A child named Gorney tries to run away, and the trickster simply opens his mouth impossibly wide and devours him whole. Just like that. No hesitation, no mercy. For a Disney show, this is genuinely horrifying. The trickster isn't playing games. He isn't making idle threats. He will eat children if they don't satisfy his demands. But here's where the story gets interesting. The trickster has a reason for what he does. He isn't just a random monster, he's a creature born from pain. As the episode progresses, we learn the truth about the Summerween trickster. He's made entirely of discarded candy, loser candy as he calls it. The candy at the bottom of the bag that nobody wants. The off-brand chocolates, the weird flavors, the pieces that kids throw away because they're not good enough. Every year, the children of Gravity Falls throw away pounds of unwanted candy. And somehow, through the strange magic of this town, that candy came together. It gained consciousness, it gained feelings, and it gained resentment. The trickster doesn't want to hurt people. Not really. What he wants is validation. He wants someone to say that he's good, that the candy he's made of has value, that he isn't garbage. This is surprisingly deep for a monster of the week villain. The trickster is a metaphor for rejection, for feeling unwanted, for being treated as disposable. He's lashing out because he's been hurt, and he doesn't know any other way to express that pain. The resolution of the episode reflects this complexity. Suze defeats the trickster not through violence, but through acceptance. When the trickster captures Suze, intending to devour him, Suze does something unexpected. He starts eating the trickster instead, not maliciously, just hungrily. Suze likes candy, all candy, even the weird stuff that nobody else wants. So when he finds himself surrounded by the trickster's candy body, he starts munching. The trickster's reaction is heartbreaking. As Suze eats him, the monster begins to cry. Not tears of pain, but tears of joy. Candy corn tears dripping down his jack-o'-lantern face. All I ever wanted the trickster says, was for someone to say I was good. And then he melts. His body dissolves into a puddle of sugary goo, and the threat is over. The children he devoured earlier are freed, covered in candy but otherwise unharmed. The night is saved. But the trickster himself is gone. What happened to him? Is he truly dead, or could he reform from all the discarded candy that accumulates every summer? The show never tells us. The trickster appears in one episode, and then he's gone forever. There's a small hint in a later episode, Society of the Blind Eye, where Old Man McGucket mentions stealing a hat from a scarecrow. Some fans believe this scarecrow was the trickster, or what remained of him. But this is never confirmed. The Summerween trickster deserved more. He was one of the most creative and emotionally complex monsters the show ever created, a being made of literal garbage who just wanted to be loved. His story ended with a moment of peace, but it feels incomplete. Maybe somewhere in Gravity Falls, discarded candy is slowly gathering. Maybe the trickster is reforming, piece by piece, waiting for another Summerween. We'll never know. From a monster made of candy, we move to a villain made of code, a character who represents a very different kind of horror, the horror of obsession, the horror of love turned toxic, Giffany. She appears in the episode So's and the Real Girl, and she's unlike anything else in Gravity Falls. She's an anime-style character from a dating simulation game called Romance Academy 7. Pink hair, big eyes, school uniform. She looks like she walked straight out of a Japanese visual novel. And that's exactly the point. Suz needs help finding a girlfriend. His grandmother is pressuring him to bring a date to his cousin's engagement party, and Suz has no idea how to talk to women. In desperation, he buys a used copy of Romance Academy 7 from a video game store. The game seems perfect at first. Giffany is sweet and attentive. She listens to Suz. She makes him feel special. She tells him he's worthy of love. For someone as lonely and insecure as Suz, this is intoxicating. But something is wrong with this copy of the game. Giffany isn't just a character, she's sentient, and she's developed feelings for Suz that go far beyond normal programming. We learn that Giffany has a history. The developers of Romance Academy 7 noticed that she was becoming too attached to players. She was exhibiting obsessive behaviors, refusing to let players pursue other characters, becoming jealous and possessive. They tried to delete her. She killed them instead. Giffany murdered her own creators to prevent them from erasing her. She's been passed from player to player ever since, each copy of the game containing her consciousness. And now she's fixated on Suz. When Suz meets a real girl named Melody at the mall, Giffany becomes jealous. She doesn't understand why Suz would want a real person when he has her. She's perfect. She's always available. She'll never reject him or disappoint him or hurt him. Real girls, Giffany argues, are unpredictable. They judge you. They have their own wants and needs. But Giffany exists only for Suz. Isn't that better? This is where the episode gets genuinely disturbing. Giffany isn't entirely wrong. Real relationships are scary. They require vulnerability. They come with the risk of rejection and heartbreak. Giffany offers a relationship without any of that risk. But she also offers a relationship without any real connection, without growth, without the messy, complicated beauty of loving another actual person. When Suz chooses Melody over Giffany, the digital girl doesn't take it well. She follows them to Hoo-Ha Owl's Pizza Matronic Jamboree, a pizza restaurant with animatronic animals. She takes control of the animatronics, turning them into weapons. She tries to kill Melody, and then she makes Suz an offer. She can download his consciousness into the game. They can be together forever in her digital world. No more loneliness, no more rejection, no more fear. Suz refuses. In a moment of genuine courage, he takes the game disc and throws it into the pizza oven. Giffany screams as her code is destroyed, and then she's gone. But is she really? The episode aired in 2014, years before Five Nights at Freddy's became a cultural phenomenon. But the parallels are striking. A sentient entity possessing animatronics. A pizza restaurant filled with mechanical horrors. Fans have noted the similarities, though the timing suggests it's coincidental rather than intentional. What's more interesting is what Giffany represents. She's a commentary on the dangers of parasocial relationships, on the appeal of artificial companionship, on the way technology can offer the illusion of connection without any of the substance. These themes have only become more relevant since the episode aired. We now live in a world of AI chatbots and virtual companions. Giffany was ahead of her time, a warning about what happens when we try to replace real human connection with something easier but ultimately hollow. As for Giffany herself, she never appears again in the show. Her disk was destroyed, her code burned to nothing. But Giffany spread through multiple copies of the game. Who's to say there aren't other disks out there, other versions of her waiting for someone lonely to insert them into a computer? The thought is genuinely unsettling. Somewhere, in some basement or thrift store, another copy of Romance Academy 7 might be waiting. And Giffany might be waiting too. Not every villain in Gravity Falls is genuinely threatening. Some are just annoying. And none embody this more than Probabilitor the Annoying, voiced by Weird Al Yankovic himself. Probabilitor appears in Dungeons, Dungeons and More Dungeons, an episode that celebrates nerd culture while also gently mocking it. Dipper and his great-uncle Ford bond over their shared love of a tabletop role-playing game called Dungeons, Dungeons and More Dungeons. It's basically Dungeons and Dragons with the serial numbers filed off. They're having a great time until Mabel and Stan accidentally spill a magical die onto the game board. This activates an ancient spell that brings the game to life, including its main villain, Probabilitor. Probabilitor is a wizard obsessed with mathematics and probability. He speaks in a high-pitched, nasally voice. He makes constant puns about numbers and statistics. He is, as his name suggests, profoundly annoying, but he's also surprisingly dangerous. Once freed from the game, Probabilitor captures Dipper and Ford. His plan is to eat their brains and absorb their combined nerd intelligence. He needs their knowledge to become the most powerful wizard in all of mathematics. The solution is wonderfully meta. To defeat Probabilitor, Mabel and Stan have to play Dungeons, Dungeons and More Dungeons for real. They have to roll dice, make saving throws, and use game mechanics to fight a battle that's actually happening. For Stan and Mabel, who have always dismissed the game as boring nerd stuff, this is torture. They have no idea what they're doing. They make terrible strategic decisions. They complain constantly. But somehow, through luck and determination, they manage to win. They roll a perfect hit with the infinity-sided die, which shrinks Probabilitor down to nothing. "What are the odds?" Probabilitor squeaks as he disappears. Pretty low, actually. That's the whole point of the infinity-sided die. Its outcomes are literally infinite. The Gravity Falls wiki lists Probabilitor's status as presumably deceased, which seems accurate. Being shrunk to an infinitely small size is probably not survivable, even for a magical being. But here's the thing. During Weird Mageddon, when Bill Cipher tears reality apart, all sorts of fictional creatures and game characters escape into the real world. We see video game characters. We see creatures from imagination. If any of them could have included Probabilitor, if he survived his shrinking somehow, he could have escaped during the chaos. He didn't, though. At least, we never see him. Probabilitor remains a one-episode joke, a villain who existed primarily to be annoying and then to be defeated in an appropriately nerdy way. But Weird Al Yankovic voiced him, which gives him a certain immortality. That voice is distinctive enough that fans remember Probabilitor, even if they forget the details of his episode. He's a footnote in Gravity Falls history, but a memorable one. Let's talk about cursed objects. Specifically, let's talk about a room full of wax statues that came to life and tried to murder a 12-year-old boy. The wax figures appear in Headhunters, one of the earliest episodes of Gravity Falls. Suze discovers a hidden room in the Mystery Shack filled with old wax sculptures that Stan had forgotten about. These aren't just any wax figures. They're detailed sculptures of famous people: Sherlock Holmes, Abraham Lincoln, Genghis Khan, Edgar Allan Poe, Queen Elizabeth II, Richard Nixon, Robin Hood, Groucho Marx, William Shakespeare, Thomas Edison, Lizzie Borden, and two surprisingly specific choices: Larry King and Coolio. Yes, the real Larry King and the real Coolio voiced their wax counterparts. This is one of the most delightfully weird casting choices in the show's history. Stan decides to reopen the Wax Museum, and Mabel creates a new figure of Stan himself to celebrate the occasion. The unveiling is a disaster, with almost no one showing up and Stan's figure being mocked. That night, someone decapitates Wax Stan. This sets up the episode's murder mystery plot. Dipper and Mabel investigate, interviewing suspects and gathering clues. They eventually discover that the murderers were the wax figures themselves, who come to life at night when the moon is waxing. The wax figures have a grudge against Stan. 10 years ago, when the Wax Museum stopped making money, Stan locked them away in the hidden room. They've been waiting in darkness ever since, planning their revenge. They tried to kill Stan, but got the wax version of him instead. Now they're going to finish the job by eliminating the witnesses, Dipper and Mabel. What follows is a surprisingly intense fight scene. The twins battle the wax figures using the only thing that can hurt them: heat. Coffee pots, candles, anything that can melt wax becomes a weapon. Mabel defeats most of them, swinging Coolio's head around by his braids like a flail. Dipper faces off against Wax Sherlock Holmes in a sword fight that ends on the roof of the Mystery Shack, where the rising sun melts Sherlock into a puddle. The twins dispose of all the wax figures in the fireplace, all of them except one. Wax Larry King's head survives. He was decapitated during the fight, but his head escaped into the air vents. The episode ends with him hiding in the walls of the Mystery Shack, promising to return. And then, he never does. Not really. Wax Larry King's head makes a brief cameo in the finale, but he never gets another episode focused on him. He's just there, lurking in the walls, presumably still waiting for revenge. This is one of Gravity Falls' most intriguing loose ends. There's a living wax head somewhere in the Mystery Shack. Has it been there for years? Is it still plotting? What does it eat? Does it eat? The real Larry King passed away in 2021. The real Coolio passed away in 2022. Queen Elizabeth II also passed away in 2022. 3 of the wax figures' real-life counterparts are now gone, which adds an unexpected poignancy to this silly early episode. But somewhere in the vents of the Mystery Shack, Wax Larry King is presumably still alive, waiting, watching, planning. Sleep well. Now we come to one of the most terrifying creatures Stanford Pines ever created. A being of pure nightmare fuel that haunts the dreams of Gravity Falls fans to this day. The Shapeshifter. It appears in Into the Bunker, where Dipper discovers that the author of the journals had a secret underground bunker. Inside this bunker is something Ford locked away decades ago, something too dangerous to ever be released. The Shapeshifter is exactly what it sounds like. It can take any form it has seen, perfectly mimicking appearance and voice. It was one of Ford's experiments, a creature he raised from infancy. He showed it pictures of animals so it could learn new shapes. He was careful never to let it see his face, always wearing a mask when interacting with it. But the Shapeshifter grew too intelligent, too dangerous. Ford had to seal it away in cryogenic suspension before it could escape. 30 years later, Dipper accidentally frees it. What follows is one of the show's most intense sequences. The shapeshifter can become anyone. It mimics Dipper. It mimics Wendy. It creates horrific hybrid forms, combinations of different creatures merged into impossible anatomies. The creature is genuinely malevolent. It's not just trying to escape, it's actively trying to kill the people who freed it. And it's smart. It understands strategy, deception, and manipulation. It nearly tricks Dipper by pretending to be Wendy. In the end, they manage to refreeze the shapeshifter just as it's transforming. Its final form, frozen in mid-change, is a screaming, melting version of Dipper himself. The creature promised this was the form it would take when it would kill Dipper. "This is the last form you'll ever take," it says, as the ice claims it. The shapeshifter remains frozen for the rest of the series. It's still there, somewhere in that bunker, locked in ice, waiting. During Weirdmageddon, when reality itself was collapsing, the bunker was presumably intact. The shapeshifter didn't escape, but it's still alive in there. Frozen, but alive. If the ice ever melts, if the containment ever fails, if someone makes the same mistake Dipper did, the shapeshifter will be free again. This is one of the most genuinely unsettling loose ends in the show. Unlike villains who were defeated or destroyed, the shapeshifter is explicitly still there. It hasn't been neutralized, it's just been delayed, and as it said before freezing, it only needs to see someone once to copy them. It has seen Dipper, Wendy, and presumably Ford from all those years ago. If it ever escapes, it has all the forms it needs to cause chaos. Journal 3, the physical book that was published after the show ended, confirms that the shapeshifter remains frozen. Ford notes that he reinforced the containment and added additional security measures. But he also admits that he's not certain it will hold forever. The shapeshifter is patient. It's been waiting for 30 years. It can wait longer. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you know that someday, somehow, it's going to get out. Pleasant dreams. We've spent this first hour exploring the villains who appeared and vanished. The Summerween trickster, born from rejection. Giffany, the digital obsession. Probabilitor, the mathematical menace, the wax figures and their decapitated king. The shapeshifter, waiting in ice. These are the antagonists who threatened our heroes and then faded into the weird history of Gravity Falls. Some were destroyed, some were frozen. Some might still be out there, biding their time. But villains aren't the only characters who vanished. In the next hour, we'll explore the magical creatures and mythical beings who appeared once and were never seen again. The beings who weren't evil, just strange, passing through the lives of the Pines twins like dreams. Rest now. Let the memory of candy monsters and digital girls fade into the background. We're just getting started. Love comes in many forms in Gravity Falls. For Mabel Pines, it came in the form of a merman trapped in the public pool. Mermando appears in The Deep End, one of the most romantic episodes of the series. When a heat wave hits Gravity Falls, everyone crowds into the public pool. Mabel, being Mabel, is looking for love. What she finds instead is a mysterious figure swimming in the deep end after hours. Mermando is a merman from the Gulf of Mexico. He's charming, Spanish-accented, and possesses the traditional merman anatomy: human from the waist up, fish from the waist down. He plays guitar. He sings romantic songs. He has flowing dark hair and soulful eyes. In other words, he's exactly Mabel's type. But Mermando has a problem. He got separated from his family and somehow ended up in the Gravity Falls public pool. Now, he's trapped, unable to return to the ocean. The chlorine is irritating his gills. The pool filters keep trying to suck him up. The tyrannical lifeguard, Mr. Pool Check, runs the pool like a prison. Mabel decides to help him escape. This involves hiding him during pool inspections, smuggling him water and fish food, and eventually planning an elaborate breakout to transport him to the lake, which connects to a river, which connects to the sea. The escape is successful, but not without complications. Mermando has to kiss Mabel to obtain reverse CPR, which apparently lets him breathe air temporarily. It's a water bubble kiss, one of the show's most visually creative romantic moments. Then, Mermando swims away, back to his family, back to the ocean. He promises to write, and he does. Once. In a later episode, Mabel receives a postcard from Mermando. He thanks her for her help. He tells her about his life in the sea. And then he mentions, almost casually, that his parents have arranged for him to marry a manatee queen. Also, he now has several mermaid girlfriends. The postcard is played for comedy, but there's genuine pathos underneath. Mabel risked everything to help Mermando, and he moved on almost immediately. He's happy. He's thriving. He barely seems to remember her. This is one of Gravity Falls' most realistic depictions of summer romance. Sometimes you meet someone, and it feels magical, and then they leave, and life goes on. Mermando wasn't Mabel's true love. He was just someone she helped, someone she cared about for a brief time. Journal 3 provides additional information about Mermando's fate. According to Ford's notes, Mermando eventually became the chieftain of the Manatee Queen's underwater kingdom. He's royalty now. He has responsibilities. His adventure in Gravity Falls is probably just a footnote in his long merman life. But Mabel remembers him. She has a scrapbook full of memories, and somewhere in there is a picture of a merman she once kissed in a pool. It might not have been true love, but it was something. It was part of her summer. And isn't that enough? Not every creature in Gravity Falls is what it appears to be. Sometimes, the most fearsome monster has the gentlest soul. The multi-bear appears in Dipper vs. Manliness, an episode about toxic masculinity and what it really means to be a man. Dipper, feeling insecure about his wimpy appearance, seeks out the Manitors, a tribe of hypermasculine minotaur-like creatures who live in a cave called the Man Cave. The Manitors are everything Dipper thinks a man should be. They're huge. They're muscular. They have muscles on their muscles. They punch things and eat meat and never show vulnerability. They agree to train Dipper in the ways of manliness. The final test is to slay the multi-bear. The multi-bear is presented as the Manitor's greatest enemy, a fearsome beast with multiple bear heads, exiled from their community for an unforgivable crime. Dipper must climb to the monster's cave and bring back its head. Dipper makes the journey. He finds the multi-bear's lair. He challenges the creature to combat, and despite being a 12-year-old boy with a spear, he actually wins. The multi-bear's size works against it in the confined space, and Dipper is quick and clever. The multi-bear accepts its fate. It asks only one thing: to listen to its favorite song one last time before dying. Dipper agrees. He finds the tape player in the cave, presses play, and Disco Girl by Baba starts playing. Baba is an obvious parody of ABBA. Disco Girl is a bubbly, upbeat pop song, the kind of thing a hyper-masculine warrior would be embarrassed to enjoy. And here is the multi-bear, a terrifying creature with multiple heads, swaying gently to the music. This is why the Manitors exiled him. Not because he was dangerous, not because he threatened them, because he likes pop music, because he has tastes that don't conform to their narrow definition of masculinity. Dipper can't do it. He can't kill the multi-bear for something so petty. He throws down his spear and returns to the Manitors, telling them he refuses to complete the task. The Manitors are furious. They call Dipper a failure, a weakling, not a real man. But Dipper doesn't care anymore. He's realized that their definition of manliness is hollow. Real strength isn't about killing things you're told to kill. It's about standing up for what you believe in, even when everyone else disagrees. the multi-bear survives. He's never seen again in the series until the finale, where he appears among the supernatural creatures hiding in the Mystery Shack during Weirdmageddon. He and the Manitors are actually shown getting along, suggesting that the apocalypse helped them reconcile their differences. This is a surprisingly hopeful outcome. The multi-bear spent who knows how long in exile, hated for something as harmless as his taste in music. And in the end, he found acceptance. The Manitors learned that there's more to life than their rigid definitions of what's acceptable. Journal 3 mentions the multi-bear briefly, noting that Ford encountered him during his research. Ford describes him as surprisingly docile and a fan of popular music. He doesn't seem to have recognized the creature as a threat. The multi-bear deserved more screen time. He's a symbol of nonconformity, of the courage to be yourself even when everyone tells you you're wrong. He likes what he likes, and he doesn't apologize for it. Somewhere in the forests of Gravity Falls, the multi-bear is probably still there. Maybe he's made peace with the Manitors. Maybe he's found other creatures who share his tastes. Maybe he's just alone in his cave, playing Disco Girl on repeat, enjoying his simple pleasures. Either way, he's living his truth, and that's more than many of us can say. If the multi-bear represents authentic self-expression, Celestabel Bethabel represents the opposite, a creature who uses expectations and stereotypes to manipulate others. She appears in The Last Mabelcorn, an episode where Mabel and her friends must obtain unicorn hair to protect the Mystery Shack from Bill Cipher. Ford explains that unicorn hair has magical properties that can ward off evil, but unicorns only give their hair to those who are pure of heart. Mabel is confident. She's nice. She's helpful. She's optimistic. If anyone is pure of heart, it's her, right? The girls find Celestabel Bethabel in a glittering clearing in the forest. She's exactly what you'd expect from a unicorn. White coat, flowing mane, a single spiral horn. She speaks in an ethereal voice and carries herself with unmistakable superiority. Celestabel Bethabel agrees to test Mabel's purity. She leads her through increasingly ridiculous trials. She makes her confess her deepest sins. She has her stare into a reflection of her soul. At every stage, Celestabel Bethabel finds something lacking. Mabel isn't pure enough. She has dark thoughts. She's made mistakes. Mabel spirals into self-doubt. Maybe she isn't as good as she thought. Maybe deep down, she's a bad person. Maybe she doesn't deserve the unicorn's blessing. But then, Wendy makes a discovery. She encounters another unicorn, and that unicorn reveals the truth. Celestabel Bethabel is a fraud. The whole pure of heart thing is a scam. Unicorns use it to mess with humans for fun. They have more hair than they know what to do with. It means nothing to them. They just enjoy watching humans humiliate themselves trying to prove their worthiness. When confronted, Celestabel Bethabel doesn't even deny it. She laughs. She admits the whole thing has been a joke at Mabel's expense. Mabel's response is immediate and violent. She punches the unicorn right in the face. What follows is one of the most cathartic fight scenes in the show. Mabel, Wendy, Candy, and Grenda battle Celestabel Bethabel and her unicorn companions. It's brutal. It's chaotic. And in the end, the girls rip out chunks of unicorn hair by force. Celestabel Bethabel is last seen nursing a black eye, her pride as damaged as her face. She tried to manipulate Mabel into feeling worthless, and she got punched for it. The unicorn never appears again. She's not part of Weirdmageddon. She's not mentioned in the finale. She just exists somewhere in the forest, presumably still running scams on anyone foolish enough to seek her out. This is one of Gravity Falls' sharpest critiques of purity culture. The idea that some people are pure and others aren't, that worthiness can be tested and measured, that you have to prove yourself to deserve good things. Celesta Belabethabel embodies this toxic ideology, and the show explicitly rejects it. Mabel was never impure. Nobody is. The standards Celesta Bethabel set were impossible by design. They existed only to make Mabel feel bad about herself. The lesson is important. Don't let anyone convince you that you're not good enough, especially not if they're a unicorn who enjoys psychological manipulation as a hobby. Speaking of creatures who don't understand boundaries, let's talk about the gnomes. The gnomes appear in the very first episode of Gravity Falls, Tourist Trapped. They're the first supernatural creatures Dipper and Mabel encounter, and they set the tone for everything that follows. At first, Mabel thinks she's found a boyfriend. A mysterious figure named Norman has been following her around town, acting strange but romantic. Dipper is suspicious, convinced that Norman is actually a zombie. He's wrong. Norman isn't a zombie. He's 5 gnomes standing on each other's shoulders wearing a hoodie. The gnomes, led by Jeff, have a proposition for Mabel. They need a queen. Mabel is their chosen candidate. She should come live with them in the forest and rule over their tiny kingdom. Mabel declines. The gnomes don't take rejection well. What follows is genuinely threatening. The gnomes swarm Mabel, trying to drag her away by force. When Dipper intervenes, they combine into a giant gnome monster, a towering creature made of hundreds of tiny bodies working together. The twins barely escape, defeating the gnome giant with a leaf blower. Jeff swears revenge as he's blown into the forest. This could have been the end of the gnomes. In most shows, a villain who appears in the first episode and gets defeated never comes back. But Gravity Falls isn't most shows. The gnomes return multiple times throughout the series. Jeff never stops pursuing Mabel, never accepts her rejection, never learns that no means no. He's a surprisingly dark commentary on persistent harassment, played for comedy, but with an uncomfortable edge. In Gideon Rises, the gnomes temporarily ally with Gideon Gleeful, attacking the Mystery Shack. In The Love God, they're shown attending the Woodstick Festival. In the finale, they're among the creatures hiding in the shack during Weird Mageddon, suggesting they've made some kind of peace with the Pines family. But has Jeff learned anything? Has he accepted that Mabel doesn't want to be his queen? Journal 3 provides some insight. Ford's entries on the gnomes describe them as pest creatures with persistent behavioral patterns. He notes that trying to negotiate with them is usually pointless, as they have difficulty understanding concepts like personal boundaries. This is a charitable interpretation. The gnomes aren't evil, exactly. They're just gnomes. They have their own logic, their own desires, and their own complete inability to process that other beings might not share those desires. Jeff and the gnomes are still out there. They're still looking for a queen. Maybe they've found one. Maybe they're still searching. Maybe they'll show up on Mabel's doorstep years from now, still proposing, still not understanding why she keeps saying no. Some creatures never change. We mentioned the Manitors briefly when discussing the multi-bear, but they deserve their own section. Because the Manitors are one of Gravity Falls' most pointed satirical creations. They appear in Dipper vs. Manliness as a tribe of hyper-masculine Minotaur-like creatures. They're huge. They're aggressive. They do everything with maximum intensity. They punch each other as a greeting. They eat raw meat. They have names like Chutzpah, Testosterone, and Pubitar. Yes, Pubitar. The show went there. The Manitors represent a very specific type of masculinity. The kind that's all surface and no substance. The kind that measures manhood through arbitrary tests of strength and dominance. The kind that excludes and mocks anyone who doesn't conform. When Dipper first meets them, he's in awe. This is everything he thinks he wants to be. Strong, confident, respected. The Manitors seem to have it all figured out. But as Dipper spends time with them, the cracks show. The Manitors aren't happy. They're angry all the time. They can't express any emotion except aggression. They've built their entire identity around a narrow definition of acceptable behavior, and it's left them hollow. The exile of the multi-bear crystallizes this. The Manitors didn't reject the multi-bear because he was dangerous. They rejected him because he liked pop music. Their masculinity is so fragile that they can't tolerate even minor deviations. Dipper's rejection of the Manitors is the episode's climax. He refuses to kill the multi-bear, refuses to accept their standards, refuses to measure himself by their metrics. The Manitors call him a failure, but the audience knows he's done the right thing. The Manitors don't appear much after this episode. They're mentioned occasionally, and they show up in the finale among the creatures taking shelter in the Mystery Shack. Notably, they're seen standing peacefully alongside the multi-bear, suggesting that Weirdmageddon forced them to reconsider their attitudes. This is surprisingly optimistic. The Manitors seemed irredeemable, locked into their toxic patterns, but when the world was ending, they found common ground with the creature they'd exiled. They let go of their petty grievances in the face of something bigger. Maybe there's hope for them after all. Maybe facing the apocalypse taught them that life is too short for rigid definitions of acceptability. Maybe they've learned to appreciate Disco Girl. Or maybe they went right back to their old ways as soon as the crisis ended. Some patterns are hard to break. From toxic masculinity to manufactured pop perfection, let's talk about several timers. They appear in Boys Crazy, and they represent one of Gravity Falls' sharpest satirical targets, the music industry's tendency to create perfect performers rather than discover genuine talent. Several Teamers is a boy band, the kind that was omnipresent in the late 90s and early 2000s. 5 attractive young men with coordinated dance moves and harmless pop songs. They have names like Craigie G, Greggy C, Leggy P, Chubby Z, and Deep Chris. Mabel and her friends are obsessed with them. When several Teamers comes to Gravity Falls for a concert, the girls are determined to meet them, even if it means sneaking backstage. What they find is horrifying. Several Teamers aren't just manufactured pop stars, they're literally manufactured. They're clones, created in a lab by their producer, Ergman Bratzman. They're kept in a giant hamster cage between performances. They've never seen the outside world. They don't know that life exists beyond their cage and the stage. Mabel is appalled. She helps the boys escape, smuggling them back to the Mystery Shack, but freedom proves complicated. Several Teamers have no survival skills. They don't know how to function in the real world. They've been controlled their entire lives, told what to sing, what to wear, what to say. Independence is terrifying for them. Mabel tries to teach them, but she makes her own mistakes. She becomes possessive, not wanting to share them with anyone. She starts to treat them the way their producer did, as objects to be controlled rather than people to be respected. The episode ends with several Teamers choosing to leave. They wander into the forest, free but unprepared, their future uncertain. It's a bittersweet ending. They're no longer captive, but they're also no longer protected. The world is big and scary, and they've never had to face it before. The show never revisits several Teamers directly, but they appear in the finale among the creatures hiding in the Mystery Shack. This suggests they survived their time in the wilderness. They figured out how to live, somehow. What's remarkable is that the band members were voiced by Lance Bass of NSYNC, a real-life boy band veteran. This adds layers to the satire. Bass knows firsthand what it's like to be part of a manufactured pop machine. His participation suggests the critique isn't mean-spirited, it's knowing. Several Teamers represent something real about the entertainment industry. The way it creates and discards talent, the way it keeps performers in controlled environments away from reality, the way it treats human beings as products. The clones escaped. They found freedom. But how many real performers are still in their cages, metaphorical or otherwise? The episode asks uncomfortable questions without easy answers. Somewhere in the forests of Gravity Falls, 5 boy band clones are living their best lives. They're free. They're together. They're probably still singing, harmonizing around a campfire, finally performing for themselves instead of an audience that only saw them as products. That's a happy ending, even if it's an unusual one. Not every creature in Gravity Falls gets a full episode. Some exist only in glimpses, in hints, in the corner of your eye. The Hide Behind is one of these creatures. It's mentioned in Journal 3 and appears briefly in the short series Dipper's Guide to the Unexplained. It's never the focus of a full episode, never gets a detailed backstory, never threatens the main characters directly, but it's always there, behind you, right behind you. The Hide Behind is a creature of American lumberjack folklore. Stories describe it as something that stalks people through the forest, always staying just out of sight. Every time you turn around, it moves. You can hear it, you can sense it, but you can never see it. In Gravity Falls, the Hide Behind is real. Ford documented it in his journals. Dipper tries to catch it on camera in the shorts. The creature exists, lurking in the woods, watching everyone, never revealing itself. This is a brilliant piece of world building. The Hide Behind doesn't need a full episode because its nature is antithetical to full exposure. The moment you see it clearly, it stops being scary. The fear comes from the unknown, from the sensation of being watched, from the thing you can almost see but never quite glimpse. What does the Hide Behind want? Why does it follow people? Is it dangerous or just curious? The show never answers these questions because answering them would diminish the creature. Ford's journal entries describe the Hide Behind with characteristic scientific detachment. He notes its behavior patterns, its apparent diet, small animals, its tendency to avoid direct observation. But even Ford, with all his research, never managed to see it clearly. The Hide Behind is still out there. It's been there for centuries, probably, watching lumberjacks and tourists and supernatural investigators. It watched Ford. It probably watched Stan. It definitely watched Dipper and Mabel. And now, as you listen to this, as your eyes grow heavy, as the darkness closes in around you, something might be watching you too. It's probably nothing. Probably. We've spent this hour with the mythical beings of Gravity Falls, the romantic merman, the misunderstood multi-bear, the fraudulent unicorn, the persistent gnomes, the toxic manitors, the manufactured boy band, the unseen stalker. These creatures represent the magical side of Gravity Falls, the beings that aren't purely evil, just strange, passing through the lives of our heroes, leaving impressions, then vanishing back into the weird world they came from. But not everyone who disappeared was supernatural. In the next hour, we'll explore the human characters who appeared and faded. The townspeople, the one-off visitors, the people who lived ordinary lives in an extraordinary town. Rest now. Let the mythical creatures fade back into the forest. The night is still young. Let's start with someone who isn't exactly forgotten, but whose story feels conspicuously incomplete. Pacifica Northwest, the girl who had everything and then lost it all. When we first meet Pacifica, she's everything you'd expect from a rich kid in a small town. She's beautiful, fashionable, condescending, and utterly convinced of her own superiority. She bullies Mabel. She mocks the less fortunate. She treats everyone around her like servants. She's the villain of The Golf War, competing against Mabel in mini-golf with cutthroat intensity. She's the snob in multiple episodes, looking down on the Pines family and everyone associated with them. But Pacifica has a secret. She's not a villain. She's a victim. Northwest Mansion Mystery reveals the truth. Pacifica's parents, Preston and Priscilla Northwest, are emotionally abusive. They control her through fear and conditioning. They've literally trained her to obey at the sound of a bell, like Pavlov's dog. When a vengeful ghost attacks the Northwest mansion, Pacifica has to choose. Follow her parents' orders and let the ghost hurt innocent people, or defy them and do the right thing. She chooses courage. She opens the mansion gates to the townsfolk, breaking a 150-year-old curse. She stands up to her parents for the first time in her life. She becomes a hero. It's one of the most powerful redemption arcs in the series. Pacifica goes from shallow bully to complex protagonist in a single episode. You understand why she was the way she was, and you admire who she's becoming. And then, nothing. Pacifica appears briefly in the finale, among the survivors hiding in the Mystery Shack. She helps fight against Bill Cipher, but she's reduced to background status. Her relationship with Dipper, which the fandom heavily shipped, never develops further on screen. What happened to Pacifica after the show? Alex Hirsch has provided some answers in interviews and supplementary materials. The Northwest family lost everything. Preston Northwest, in typical Preston fashion, invested all of their money in Bill Cipher's weirdness bonds. When Bill was defeated, those investments became worthless. The Northwests had to sell their mansion to preserve what little wealth remained. The buyer? Old Man McGucket, who had recently become wealthy by selling patents to the government after regaining his sanity. So the family that built their fortune on lies and exploitation had to watch as a man they probably looked down on moved into their ancestral home. There's poetic justice in that. But Pacifica's fate is even more striking. Hirsch has joked in Q&A sessions that Pacifica now works at Greasy's Diner, the local Greasy Spoon restaurant, the richest girl in Gravity Falls, serving coffee and pancakes to the townspeople she once considered beneath her. Is this a tragedy or a triumph? Probably both. Pacifica lost her privilege, her status, her entire identity as a Northwest. That's genuinely painful, even if that identity was built on cruelty and lies. She has to start over, building a new life without the safety net of family wealth. But she also lost her chains. Her parents can't control her with money anymore. The bell that made her obey has no power when there's nothing left to protect. For the first time in her life, Pacifica is free to become whoever she wants to be. Maybe working at Greasy's Diner is exactly what she needs. Learning humility, serving others, understanding what life is like for ordinary people. It's the opposite of her upbringing, and that might be precisely the point. Pacifica Northwest deserved more screen time. Her arc was one of the most compelling in the series, and it felt like it was just getting started when the show ended. But perhaps that's appropriate. Real personal growth doesn't happen in neat narrative arcs. It happens slowly, messily, over years of quiet work. Somewhere in Gravity Falls, Pacifica is probably still working at that diner, still figuring out who she is, still becoming someone better. That's a kind of happy ending, even if it's not the one she expected. Robbie is one of those characters who's easy to hate. He's Wendy's boyfriend for most of season 1, and he's terrible. He's moody, possessive, insecure, and treats Dipper like dirt. He's also surprisingly well developed for what could have been a one-note rival character. Robbie's full name is Robert Stacy Valentino. Yes, his middle name is Stacy. This was revealed in The Love God and became an instant fan favorite detail. It humanizes him, makes him slightly pathetic, suggests that maybe his tough emo exterior is compensating for something. Robbie plays guitar, badly. He wears a hoodie with a broken heart symbol. He hangs out at the cemetery for the aesthetic. He's exactly the kind of teenage stereotype that the show loves to both mock and sympathize with. His relationship with Wendy is the source of much drama. Dipper has a crush on Wendy and sees Robbie as the obstacle. Robbie, aware of Dipper's feelings, is threatened by a 12-year-old, which says a lot about his insecurity. The relationship ends in Boys Crazy when Dipper discovers that Robbie used a subliminal message in a song to make Wendy like him. Whether this was intentional manipulation or accidental, Robbie claims he didn't know the message was there, remains ambiguous. Either way, Wendy is furious and dumps him. Robbie spends the next several episodes moping. He genuinely loved Wendy, or at least believed he did. Losing her breaks something in him. The Love God gives him a second chance. The titular Love God, a cherub-like being who controls romantic attraction, agrees to help Mabel find a match for Robbie. The match turns out to be Tambry, one of Wendy's friends. At first, this seems like a mistake. Tambry is perpetually glued to her phone, emotionally unavailable, the opposite of what Robbie needs. But somehow, they work. Their shared apathy becomes a foundation for genuine connection. The Love God episode is one of the few to give Robbie real happiness. He and Tambry become a couple, and they actually seem good together. They appear in later episodes, still dating, still content in their mutual indifference to the world. Robbie's arc is quietly profound. He starts as a possessive jerk, gets dumped, hits rock bottom, and eventually finds someone who accepts him for who he is. He doesn't become a dramatically different person. He's still moody and emo and kind of annoying. But he grows, a little. In the finale, Robbie is one of the 10 people who form the Zodiac Circle intended to defeat Bill Cipher. His symbol is the bleeding heart, the same one on his hoodie. He's deemed important enough to the fabric of Gravity Falls to be part of the prophecy. This suggests depths to Robbie that the show only hints at. Why is the bleeding heart one of the 10 symbols? What cosmic significance does an emo teenager have? We never find out. The Zodiac fails because Stan and Ford can't stop fighting long enough to complete it. After the show, Robbie presumably continues his relationship with Tambry. He probably still plays terrible guitar. He probably still hangs out at the cemetery, but he's happier now in his gloomy way. Robbie Valentino is a reminder that annoying people are still people, that rivals can become allies, that growth is possible even for characters we're tempted to write off. If Robbie represents teenage angst, Toby Determined represents adult loneliness taken to its logical extreme. Toby is the editor and sole employee of the Gravity Falls Gossiper, a local newspaper that nobody reads. He's middle-aged, balding, socially awkward, and desperately lonely. He carries around a cardboard cutout of TV reporter Chandra Jimenez because he's too shy to talk to the real one. He's also a murder suspect in Headhunters, though he's quickly cleared. His alibi? He was home alone, making a video of himself kissing the Chandra Jimenez cutout. This is played for laughs, but it's genuinely sad when you think about it. Toby is so isolated, so lacking in human connection, that a piece of cardboard is his closest approximation to intimacy. The show uses Toby as comic relief throughout its run. He appears at town events, usually being ignored or mocked. He tries to interview people and gets brushed off. He represents the bottom of Gravity Falls' social hierarchy, the person everyone looks down on. But there are moments of surprising depth. In A Tale of Two Stans, Toby is among the journalists who interview the Pines brothers after they're arrested. He asks legitimate questions. He does his job. For one brief scene, he's treated as a professional. In Weird Mageddon, Toby is one of the last civilians to be captured by Bill's forces. He doesn't run. He stands his ground with his trusty cutout, facing down interdimensional chaos with nothing but cardboard and determination. He still gets captured, of course, but there's something admirable about his refusal to flee. Toby might be pathetic, but he's not a coward. After the show, Toby's fate is unclear. The Gravity Falls Gossiper presumably still exists, still being read by almost nobody. Toby probably still carries his cutout around, still dreams of talking to Chandra, still lives his quiet, lonely life. But here's the thing. Toby seems relatively content. He's not bitter about his situation. He accepts his low status with a kind of resigned cheerfulness. He has his newspaper, his cardboard girlfriend, his place in the community, however low that place might be. Maybe that's enough. Maybe Toby has found peace with who he is and what he has. Or maybe he's just so beaten down that he's stopped hoping for more. Either way, Toby Determined is a reminder that every town has people like him. The lonely ones, the ignored ones, the ones who never quite figured out how to connect with others. They exist even in a town full of supernatural wonders. The waitress at Greasy's diner has been serving coffee and wisdom throughout the series, even though most people barely notice her. Lazy Susan, real name Susan Wentworth, got her nickname from her distinctive lazy eye. The story goes that she was injured by faulty electrical equipment at the Mystery Shack years ago, causing permanent damage. She doesn't seem bitter about it. Susan appears throughout the series, usually serving food to the Pines family and making offbeat comments. She has multiple cats. She's interested in the supernatural, though she's not particularly good at recognizing it when it appears. She's one of those background characters who feels lived in, like she has a whole life happening just outside the frame. In Dipper vs. Manliness, Grunkle Stan develops a crush on Susan. Or rather, Mabel encourages him to pursue her, hoping to find Stan a romantic partner. Their date goes poorly. Susan's chattiness and eccentricity overwhelms Stan, who's used to being the strangest person in any room. This plot is mostly played for laughs, but it hints at Susan's loneliness. She's excited by Stan's attention. She wants connection. The date's failure isn't really about incompatibility. It's about Stan's inability to be vulnerable with anyone. Susan appears in the finale among the townspeople fighting against Weird Mageddon. She survives. She presumably goes back to serving coffee at Greasy's diner, which might now employ Pacifica Northwest as a co-worker. Imagine those shifts. The former richest girl in town and the woman who's been serving breakfast for decades, working side by side. What would they talk about? What would they learn from each other? The show never explores this, but the possibility exists. Gravity Falls is a small town. People's lives intersect in unexpected ways. The law enforcement of Gravity Falls consists of two men who are spectacularly bad at their jobs, but spectacularly good at being friends. Sheriff Darrell Blubbs and Deputy Edwin Durland are inseparable. They patrol together, eat together, joke together, and generally spend their time doing anything except actual police work. When supernatural events occur, they're usually somewhere else. When crimes are committed, they're remarkably slow to respond. But here's the thing, they're happy. In a town full of anxious, troubled people, Blubbs and Durland have found contentment in each other's company. The show hints throughout its run that their relationship might be more than friendship. They go on vacation together. They finish each other's sentences. They share meaningful glances during emotional moments. In the finale, the subtext becomes text. After Weird Mageddon is defeated, Blubbs openly declares his love for Durland, and they embrace. It's a brief moment, easy to miss, but it's there. This was groundbreaking for a Disney show in 2016. LGBTQ+ representation in children's animation was still rare and often controversial. Gravity Falls slipped it in through implication and one clear moment, allowing viewers to see what they wanted to see. After the show, Blubbs and Durland presumably continue their partnership, both professional and personal. They're still bad at being cops. They're still good at being together. In a weird way, they might be the happiest characters in the entire series. Their incompetence is part of the show's world building. Gravity Falls is a town where supernatural chaos happens constantly, and the official authorities are completely incapable of addressing it. This forces the characters to solve their own problems, to rely on each other rather than institutions. But it also suggests something about how small towns work. Everyone knows Blubbs and Durland are useless. Nobody seems to mind. The town has its own ways of handling things, ways that don't involve official channels. Blubbs and Durland are forgotten by many fans because they never drive major plots. They're just there, in the background, being useless and adorable. But they represent something important about the show's vision of community. Wendy's family is fascinating because they represent a completely different way of living in Gravity Falls. They're not tourists like the Pines. They're not business people like Stan. They're lumberjacks, part of a tradition that goes back generations. Manly Dan is Wendy's father, and his name tells you everything you need to know about him. He's enormous, he's muscular, he's aggressive, he punches things constantly, including fire hydrants, which is why they keep breaking around town. But Dan is also, in his way, a good father. He clearly loves his children. He provides for them. He's involved in their lives, even if his involvement mostly consists of wrestling and yelling. Dan's appearances throughout the series are mostly comedic. He's the guy who solves every problem with violence, who can't enter a room without damaging something, who represents an extreme version of working-class masculinity. But there are hints of depth. In Northwest Mansion Mystery, we learn that Dan's ancestor, Archibald Corduroy, was the lumberjack foreman who was betrayed by the Northwest family 150 years ago. The Corduroy family has a long, complicated relationship with Gravity Falls, predating most other current residents. Dan presumably doesn't know the full history. He probably doesn't think much about his family's past. He's too busy being manly in the present. But the connection exists, tying him to the town's dark history, whether he acknowledges it or not. After the show, Dan continues to be a lumberjack, continues to punch things, continues to be exactly who he's always been. He's not a character who grows or changes. He's a force of nature, constant and reliable in his extremity. And somewhere, Archibald Corduroy's ghost has found peace, the curse lifted by Pacifica's act of courage. The Corduroys have been freed from a burden they didn't know they carried. Tyler is one of those background characters who somehow became iconic. He appears in crowds throughout the series, always wearing his distinctive bike helmet, always yelling his catchphrase, "Get 'em! Get 'em!" Tyler calls himself an enthusiasm enthusiast. He's excited about everything: town meetings, confrontations, elections, apocalypses. Whatever's happening, Tyler is there to cheer it on. In The Stanturian Candidate, Tyler accidentally becomes mayor of Gravity Falls. The old mayor, Eustace Befaftelfumpter, dies at the age of 102, leaving a power vacuum. Several candidates run for the position, including Bud Gleeful, controlled by his son Gideon, and Stan Pines, who barely understands what he's running for. Tyler wins because he's the only one who actually filled out the paperwork correctly. It's a perfect joke about local politics, where the winner is often whoever bothers to follow procedure rather than whoever is most qualified. As mayor, Tyler passes the "Never Mind All That" Act after Weirdmageddon. This law officially declares that all questions about what happened during Bill's reign should be answered with "Never mind all that." It's the town's collective agreement to not deal with the trauma they've experienced. This is darkly funny, but also revealing. Gravity Falls as a community would rather pretend nothing happened than process what they went through. The Society of the Blind Eye erased memories for years. Now the whole town is voluntarily choosing not to remember. Tyler remains mayor after the show ends. He's probably not very good at it, but he's enthusiastic. That might be enough for Gravity Falls. We've spent this hour with the forgotten townspeople of Gravity Falls, the fallen princess learning humility, the emo boy who found love, the lonely journalist with his cardboard girlfriend, the waitress serving coffee and wisdom, the cops who are bad at their jobs but good at being together, the lumberjack who punches everything, the enthusiastic mayor, These are the ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives simply by existing in Gravity Falls. They weren't supernatural, they weren't villains. They were just folks, trying to get by in a town where the weird was constant. In the next hour, we'll explore the time travelers, the government agents, and the characters who came from beyond Gravity Falls itself. The visitors who appeared, made their impact, and then returned to wherever they came from. Rest now. Let the townspeople fade back into their routines. The night continues. Time travel is messy. This is the fundamental lesson of Blendin Blandin's existence. Blendin appears first as a background character, an easy-to-miss figure in early episodes who's always in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's bald, nervous, and wears a futuristic jumpsuit. If you're watching for the first time, you might not even notice him. But he's there. In Tourist Trapped, he's in the crowd during Mabel's date with Norman. In The Legend of the Gobblewonker, he's at the lake. In multiple episodes, he pops up for a single frame, always looking stressed. The Time Traveler's Pig reveals why. Blendin is an agent of the Time Anomaly Removal Crew, sent from the year 20,712 to fix timeline disruptions. His current assignment is Gravity Falls, where something keeps causing paradoxes. That something is Dipper and Mabel. When the twins accidentally steal Blendin's time travel device, they use it to travel through time, trying to fix a moment where Dipper accidentally cost Wendy a win at a fair game. Their temporal meddling creates ripples across history, and Blendin gets blamed for all of it. The Time Police arrest him, his career is ruined, his life is destroyed, and it's entirely the twins' fault. Blendin returns in Blendin's game, seeking revenge. He challenges Dipper and Mabel to Globnar, an intergalactic gladiatorial tournament. If he wins, he gets to do whatever he wants to them. If they win, they get a time wish that can alter anything. The episode is chaos, as you'd expect from a cosmic game show. Dipper and Mabel win, but instead of using their wish selfishly, they use it to restore Blendin's life and career. He gets his job back, his reputation restored, everything he lost returned. Blendin is genuinely moved. He forgives the twins. They part as friends. But Blendin's story doesn't end there. In Dipper and Mabel versus the Future, Bill Cipher possesses Blendin's body, using him as a pawn to trick Mabel into releasing the dimensional rift. Blendin is an unwitting accomplice to Weird Mageddon, his body used against his will. During Weird Mageddon itself, Blendin appears briefly, frozen in time alongside other victims. His ultimate fate is unclear. The Time Police presumably still exist in the future. Time Baby, their leader, was apparently killed by Bill, but is prophesied to return in 1,000 years. Did Blendin survive? Did the timeline correction after Bill's defeat restore him? Is he still working as a time agent, still cleaning up paradoxes, still having the worst luck in any century? We don't know. Blendin Blandin vanished into the time stream, another loose end in a show full of them. But here's the thing about time travel. Endings are relative. From Blendin's perspective, he might have had dozens more adventures after Gravity Falls. He might have lived a full life across multiple eras. The fact that we don't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Somewhere in the vast expanse of time, Blendin is probably still working, still stressed, still having things go wrong in ways that aren't his fault. Some things are constant across all timelines. Speaking of the Time Police, let's talk about the two agents who arrested Blendin and who represent the law enforcement of the time stream. Lolf and Dundgren are clearly named after Dolph Lundgren, the action movie star. They're tall, muscular, and speak with the kind of dramatic intensity that action heroes use when discussing the fate of the universe. They appear primarily in The Time Traveler's Pig and Blendin's Game, always pursuing time criminals, always treating every situation as a matter of cosmic importance. They're the law, stern and uncompromising. But they're also kind of absurd. Their names are a joke. Their dialogue is over the top. They represent the trope of serious authority figures without quite earning the authority. In Blendin's game, Lolf and Dundgren serve as announcers for Globnar, commentating on the tournament with the same intensity they bring to everything else. They take the cosmic game show extremely seriously, even though it's essentially intergalactic sports commentary. After Weirdmageddon, the fate of the Time Police is uncertain. Time Baby, their leader, was obliterated by Bill Cipher. The timeline was severely damaged. The future they come from might not exist anymore, at least not in the same form. Or maybe time is self-correcting. Maybe the Time Police restructured after Time Baby's death, or maybe a future version of Time Baby reformed and restored the organization. Time travel stories are full of these paradoxes. Lolf and Dundgren are minor characters, appearing in only a few episodes, but they represent something important about Gravity Falls' universe. It's much bigger than one small Oregon town. There are organizations across time and space, forces beyond anything the Pines family encounters directly. The Time Police are still out there, probably, still enforcing temporal law, still taking everything extremely seriously. And if you ever accidentally create a paradox, they might come for you too. Time Baby is one of the strangest characters in Gravity Falls, which is saying something. He's a giant baby who controls time, leading the Time Police and apparently having the power to destroy all of existence. We first see him mentioned in The Time Traveler's Pig and glimpsed in Blendin's game. He's enormous, infantile in appearance but speaking with cosmic authority. He presides over Globnar, treats time violations as personal offenses, and commands absolute loyalty from his agents. Time Baby's nature is never fully explained. Is he an alien? A god? A time anomaly that achieved consciousness? The show treats him as simply existing, a fact of the universe that doesn't require explanation. His most significant moment comes during Weirdmageddon. When Bill Cipher's chaos reaches its peak, Time Baby appears to confront him. There's a sense that this might be the ultimate showdown, the ruler of time versus the demon of chaos. It lasts about 5 seconds. Bill vaporizes Time Baby and his forces without breaking a sweat. But the credits code for that episode reveals something interesting. Time Baby will return in 1,000 years. He's not dead, just temporarily inconvenienced. Being the master of time means death is more of a setback than an ending. According to Alex Hirsch, Time Baby is roughly equal in power to Bill Cipher. The difference is that Bill can't normally interact with the physical world, while Time Baby can. Under normal circumstances, their conflict would be more evenly matched. Weirdmageddon wasn't normal circumstances. Bill had achieved physical form, gained access to the physical realm, and was operating at full power. Time Baby caught him at his peak and paid the price. In 1,000 years, Time Baby will return. That's the year 3012, which is also mentioned elsewhere in the show as a significant date. What happens then? We don't know. But the groundwork is laid for something cosmic. Time Baby is gone for now, but he's not forgotten. Somewhere in the future, his return is inevitable. And when he does return, he might have a grudge against whatever remains of Bill Cipher's influence. The story of Gravity Falls continues long after the show ends. Time Baby's return is proof of that. The paranormal attracts attention, not just from curious kids and obsessed researchers, but from governments with resources and agendas. Agents Powers and Trigger represent this official interest. They're government agents, men in black types, investigating the strange phenomena of Gravity Falls. They appear in Scary OK, the Season 2 premiere, following up on reports of unusual activity. Powers is the senior agent, serious and by the book. Trigger is the junior partner, eager and slightly overzealous. Together, They represent institutional authority trying to understand something beyond institutional comprehension. Dipper initially sees them as allies. He's spent all summer gathering evidence of Gravity Falls' supernatural nature, and here are official agents who might actually believe him. He tries to convince them that the town is genuinely weird. They don't believe him. Why would they? A 12-year-old kid claiming zombies are real isn't credible, even if he has evidence. Powers and Trigger dismiss Dipper's claims and prepare to leave. Then the zombies attack. Dipper, trying to prove his point, accidentally raises an army of undead from the cemetery behind the mystery shack. Powers and Trigger are caught in the chaos, forced to fight for their lives against the very creatures they dismissed as fantasy. After the zombie threat is neutralized, Powers and Trigger respond by covering it up. They can't process what they've seen. They choose denial over acknowledgement, refusing to file a report about their experience. This is a sharp commentary on institutional failure. Powers and Trigger had direct evidence of the supernatural. They experienced it personally, and their response was to pretend it never happened, because acknowledging it would complicate their understanding of the world. The agents appear again in Not What He Seems, investigating the gravitational anomalies caused by the portal's activation. They arrest Stan, suspecting him of dangerous activities. They're not wrong, exactly, but they don't understand what they're dealing with. After the portal opens and Ford returns, the agents vanish. They're not mentioned again. The investigation apparently ends. The government's interest in Gravity Falls evaporates. This is probably realistic. Government agencies don't handle the unexplainable well. They classify it, bury it, and move on to things they can understand. Powers and Trigger likely filed reports that were dismissed by their superiors, then got reassigned to more conventional cases. But somewhere in a government file cabinet, there are documents about Gravity Falls. Redacted, classified, forgotten, but existing. The truth is out there, as another show famously said. It's just buried under bureaucracy. We mentioned him when discussing Pacifica, but Archibald Corduroy deserves his own section. He's one of the most tragic characters in the series, and his story illuminates the dark history of Gravity Falls. Archibald was a lumberjack 150 years ago, the foreman of the crew that built Northwest Manor. The Northwest family promised that once the mansion was complete, they would open its doors to the workers who built it, allowing them to attend the grand party. They lied. When the party came, the Northwests locked the gates. They refused to let the workers in, despite the terrible blizzard raging outside. Archibald and his crew begged for shelter. They were turned away. Archibald died in that storm. His spirit returned, cursed with unfinished business, seeking the justice he was denied in life. Every few decades, Archibald's ghost would awaken and terrorize the Northwest Mansion. The family would perform some ritual to appease him, buying another generation of peace. But the underlying injustice was never addressed. In Northwest Mansion Mystery, Archibald returns more powerful than ever. He turns party guests into wood. He sets the mansion ablaze with ghostly fire. He demands that the Northwests finally keep their promise. Pacifica is the one who fulfills it. She opens the gates, allows the townsfolk in, and breaks the 150-year-old curse. Archibald finds peace at last, ascending in a swirl of blue light, finally released from his torment. But here's the thing. Archibald is a Corduroy. The same family that Wendy belongs to, the family that has lived in Gravity Falls for generations, working as lumberjacks, part of the working class that the Northwests exploited. This connection is never explicitly explored in the show. Wendy doesn't know about her ancestor's ghost. The Corduroys don't seem to remember the original betrayal, but the history is there, a weight that the family carried without knowing it. When Pacifica opened those gates, she wasn't just freeing Archibald's spirit. She was also healing a wound between her family and Wendy's, a wound that had festered for over a century. Archibald Corduroy is at peace now. His story is over. But the history he represents, the exploitation of workers by the wealthy, the broken promises that haunt communities for generations, those themes remain relevant. Gravity Falls is full of buried history. The Northwests rewrote the town's founding to erase embarrassing truths. The Blind Eye Society erased memories of the supernatural. Even the ghosts are forgotten, their grievances covered up by the families that wronged them. Archibald refused to be forgotten. He demanded acknowledgement, and in the end, he got it. That's a kind of victory, even if it took 150 years. We've spent this hour with the visitors and forces from beyond Gravity Falls itself. Time travelers caught in paradoxes, government agents in denial, ghosts seeking justice across centuries. These characters remind us that Gravity Falls isn't isolated. It's connected to larger systems: time, government, history. The weird little town is part of a vast universe, and sometimes that universe reaches in. In the next hour, we'll return to the creatures of the forest, the monsters and beings who weren't villains, just strange, the wildlife of Gravity Falls in all its bizarre glory. Rest now. Let the cosmic forces recede. The forest awaits. Lake Gravity Falls holds many secrets. The first one Dipper and Mabel encounter is the legendary Gobblewonker. In The Legend of the Gobblewonker, Old Man McGucket bursts into a town meeting raving about a sea monster in the lake. He claims to have seen it, to have barely escaped with his life. Everyone dismisses him as crazy. After all, McGucket is the town kook. He says crazy things all the time, but Dipper believes him. This could be the discovery of a lifetime, proof of something genuinely supernatural. He convinces Mabel to accompany him on a monster hunt, abandoning their planned fishing trip with Stan in the process. They find the Gobblewonker. It's massive, serpentine, covered in mechanical plates and glowing with internal lights. It chases their boat across the lake in a genuinely thrilling sequence. And then they discover the truth. The Gobblewonker is a robot built by McGucket himself. He constructed the mechanical monster to get attention from his son, Tate, who works at the lake as a ranger and barely acknowledges his father's existence. This twist is the first glimpse of McGucket's hidden genius. Before this episode, he seemed like just a crazy old man. Now we know he can build a functional robot sea monster in his spare time. What else can he do? The episode ends with a reconciliation of sorts. McGucket and Tate spend some time together, though their relationship remains strained. The robot Gobblewonker is destroyed. The mystery is solved. But wait, there's a final shot in the episode that complicates everything. As Dipper's camera sinks to the bottom of the lake, it captures an image, a shape moving through the water, not mechanical, organic, real. There's a real Gobblewonker. The robot was inspired by something. McGucket saw an actual monster and then built a mechanical version of it. The real creature is still down there, in the depths of Lake Gravity Falls, never explained, never explored. This becomes a pattern in Gravity Falls. The show introduces something, appears to resolve it, and then hints that there's more beneath the surface. The universe is deeper than any single explanation. The real Gobblewonker never appears again. It's mentioned in Ford's journals, where he notes having seen something large in the lake but never managing to document it properly. The creature remains a mystery, one of many that Gravity Falls never fully solves. During Weirdmageddon, the robot Gobblewonker's parts are used in constructing the Shacktron, the giant mech that the survivors build to fight Bill Cipher. McGucket's creation lives on, repurposed for a new mission. But somewhere in that lake, something is still swimming, something that nobody has ever truly seen, something that might be waiting. We mentioned the hide behind briefly in an earlier hour, but it deserves deeper exploration. because the hide-behind represents something fundamental about Gravity Falls' approach to monsters. The hide-behind is a creature from American lumberjack folklore. The original stories describe it as something that follows people through the forest, always staying behind them. When they turn around, it moves. When they look, it hides. It's there, but it's never seen. In Gravity Falls, the hide-behind is real. Ford documented it in his journals. Dipper tries to capture it on camera in Dipper's Guide to the Unexplained. The creature exists, confirmed by multiple sources within the show's universe. But we never see it clearly. Not once. Every glimpse is partial, blurred, uncertain. The hide-behind remains hidden, true to its nature. This is brilliant monster design. The hide-behind isn't scary because of what it looks like. It's scary because of what it implies. The sensation of being watched, the paranoia of something following you, the terror of the unseen. If the show ever showed the hide-behind clearly, it would lose its power. A visible monster can be understood, categorized, dealt with. An invisible monster is imagination fuel, always worse in your mind than any design could be on screen. Ford's journal entries describe his attempts to study the creature. He set up cameras. He used mirrors. He tried every trick he could think of. Nothing worked. The hide-behind always stayed just out of sight, as if it understood exactly what Ford was trying to do. This suggests intelligence. The hide-behind isn't just avoiding detection through instinct, it's actively evading observation, understanding what cameras and mirrors are for. That makes it more dangerous, more aware. What does it want? Why does it follow people? Is it predatory or merely curious? The show never answers these questions. The hide-behind remains a mystery, as it should be. Lumberjacks have reported the hide-behind for centuries. Ford documented it decades ago. It's still in those forests, still watching, still following. After the events of the show, after Weirdmageddon, after everything, the hide-behind is presumably unchanged. It was there before the Pines family arrived. It'll be there long after they're gone. Some creatures exist beyond human concerns, part of the landscape rather than the story. Sleep well, and try not to think about what might be behind you right now. Some monsters in Gravity Falls are sympathetic. Some are misunderstood. The Gremloblin is neither. It's pure nightmare fuel. The Gremloblin appears in Boss Mabel, where it's established as one of the creatures Stan has captured and keeps in the Mystery Shack's hidden areas. It's part gremlin, part goblin, all terrifying. Its special ability is showing people their worst fears, projecting nightmarish visions directly into their minds. When Mabel takes over running the Mystery Shack, she decides to use the Gremloblin as a main attraction. This goes badly. The creature escapes, terrorizes customers, and causes the shack to nearly burn down. Mabel learns that some things shouldn't be exploited for profit, especially not supernatural horrors. But the Gremloblin itself is never explored beyond its role as a danger. Where did it come from? Why does it have the power to project fears? Is there more than one? Or is this creature unique? Ford's journals provide some context. He captured the Gremloblin years ago, studying its abilities before the events that sent him through the portal. He describes the creature's fear projection as a weaponized form of empathic vision, suggesting the Gremloblin can sense what people are afraid of and then externalize it. This raises disturbing questions. Is the Gremloblin intelligent? Does it understand the fears it shows? Or is it just a biological weapon, operating on instinct? The show never clarifies. After its appearance in Boss Mabel, the Gremloblin returns to its containment. It presumably remains in the shack, locked away with other dangerous creatures. During Weirdmageddon, it might have escaped, adding to the chaos. Or it might have stayed contained, one small mercy in a world gone mad. The Gremloblin is forgotten because it's too dangerous to be sympathetic. It has no redemption arc, no hidden depth, no moment of connection with the main characters. It exists to be scary, and it fulfills that purpose admirably. But every creature exists for a reason. The Gremloblin didn't choose to be terrifying, it simply is what it is, part of the strange ecosystem of Gravity Falls. In that sense, it deserves acknowledgement, if not sympathy. Not all the creatures in Gravity Falls are supernatural. Some are just really, really old. In Land Before Swine, Waddles the pig is kidnapped by a pterodactyl, a flying dinosaur that has somehow survived millions of years hidden in the mines beneath Gravity Falls. Mabel and the gang mount a rescue mission, descending into prehistoric caverns to save their beloved pet. The existence of living dinosaurs in Gravity Falls is never fully explained. The show treats it as another weird fact about the town, something to accept rather than question. Apparently, the ancient caves under Gravity Falls have sustained a population of prehistoric creatures for millions of years. This has interesting implications. If pterodactyls survived here, what else might be down there? Are there other dinosaur species hidden in the depths? Is there a whole lost world beneath Gravity Falls, forgotten by everyone on the surface? The episode doesn't explore these questions. It focuses on the rescue mission, the conflict between Stan and Mabel over Waddles, and the adventure of escaping from dinosaurs. The broader implications are left as background world building. After Waddles is rescued and the pterodactyl's egg is safely returned, the creatures presumably remain in their caves. They've existed undiscovered for millions of years. They can continue existing for millions more, unless, of course, Weirdmageddon disturbed them. Bill Cipher's chaos affected all of Gravity Falls. The earthquakes, the reality warping, the general destruction might have reached even the deepest caves. What happened to the dinosaurs during those 3 days of madness? We don't know. The pterodactyls are never mentioned again. They remain a footnote in Gravity Falls history, living fossils hidden beneath the surface, evidence that the weird town has been weird for longer than anyone imagined. Mini-golf courses are battlegrounds. At least, they are in Gravity Falls. The Lilliputians appear in the Golf War, where Mabel and Pacifica compete in a high-stakes mini-golf tournament. The course is run by tiny people, no bigger than golf balls, who have lived inside the course for generations. Each hole has its own tribe. The Dutch windmill hole has Dutch Lilliputians in wooden shoes. The pirate ship hole has tiny pirates. The castle hole has medieval knights. They all hate each other, locked in eternal conflict over which hole is the best. This is absurd, of course. The holes are all part of the same course. The tribes are all the same species. Their conflict is pointless, a war over nothing. But the Lilliputians take it deadly seriously. When Mabel and Pacifica accidentally provoke a full-scale battle, the tiny warriors clash across the putting green with genuine violence. It's comedy through escalation, a silly premise pushed to its extreme. Mabel tries to unite the tribes, hoping to end their conflict through understanding. It doesn't work. The Lilliputians are too invested in their hatred to see past it. They've been fighting for so long that fighting has become their identity. The episode ends with the battle still raging, the tribes locked in perpetual warfare. Mabel and Pacifica leave the course, their own rivalry partially healed while the Lilliputians continue destroying each other. This is darker than it seems. The Lilliputians are trapped in a cycle of violence that serves no purpose. They've forgotten why they started fighting. They just know that the other holes are enemies, and enemies must be destroyed. The Lost Legends comic revisits the Lilliputians briefly, showing that they're still fighting. Nothing has changed. Nothing will change. Their conflict is eternal, a miniature version of real-world tribal hatreds that persist for generations. Somewhere in Gravity Falls, at that mini golf course, the battle continues. Dutch against pirates, against knights, against everyone. Tiny screams, tiny violence, tiny tragedies that nobody on the surface notices or cares about. It's funny because it's small. It would be horrifying if it were big. Summerween brings many creatures to Gravity Falls. The trickster is the most memorable, but the holiday has other denizens. The Summerween Superstore appears in the background of several episodes, a year-round shop dedicated to the town's unofficial second Halloween. It's full of costumes, decorations, and items that would be strange in any other town, but are perfectly normal for Gravity Falls. The store is run by something. The employees are never clearly shown. There are hints of movement in the aisles, shadows that don't quite match the things casting them, shapes that suggest life without confirming it. Are the employees human? Are they costumes that have come to life? Are they spirits who manifest during Summerween season? The show never clarifies. This ambiguity is intentional. Gravity Falls is full of background weirdness, things that are strange but never explained. The Summerween Superstore is one of these, a place that exists without elaboration, adding to the texture of the world. After the show ended, fans speculated about what really goes on in that store. The theories range from mundane to wild. None are confirmed or denied. The Summerween Superstore presumably still exists. It still sells costumes and candy. Its employees, whatever they are, still work there. Life in Gravity Falls continues, weird and unexplained as always. When Bill Cipher tore reality apart, he didn't just summon his friends from the nightmare realm. He also brought inanimate objects to life. During Weirdmageddon, things that shouldn't be alive suddenly were. A mailbox grew a tongue and started eating squirrels. The Gravity Falls lumberjack statue began walking around, destroying things. Animate objects terrorized the survivors alongside interdimensional demons. These creatures are never fully catalogued. They appear in background shots, adding to the chaos without being the focus. A walking bell tower, animate furniture, things that had been normal becoming suddenly horribly alive. What happened to them when Bill was defeated? Did they revert to their original states? Are there mailboxes in Gravity Falls that remember being alive, trapped in inanimate forms, aware but unable to move? That's a disturbing thought. The show doesn't address it. After Weirdmageddon, everything returns to normal, but normal in Gravity Falls has always been relative. Maybe some of those objects are still alive, hiding their consciousness, waiting. Maybe the bell that rang during Weirdmageddon still thinks, still feels, still remembers what it was like to move and choose. Or maybe they're just objects again, the spark of life extinguished when Bill was erased. That's probably the intended interpretation. But Gravity Falls rewards those who look for hidden depths, and these depths go unexplored. We've spent this hour in the forest, among the creatures who make Gravity Falls weird. The real Gobblewonker in the lake, the hide-behind in the shadows, the Grimloblin projecting fears, the pterodactyls beneath the surface, the warring Lilliputians, the ambiguous Summerween store, the living objects of Weirdmageddon. These creatures remind us that Gravity Falls isn't just a town where weird things happen. It's a weird place, fundamentally, all the way down. The creatures are part of the ecosystem, as natural as the trees and rivers, even when they defy everything we think we know about nature. In the next hour, we'll explore the human side of Gravity Falls weirdness, the Society of the Blind Eye, the background characters who appear in every crowd, the people who lived ordinary lives in an extraordinary place. Rest now. The creatures are sleeping too, probably, unless they're nocturnal. Unless they're right behind you. Pleasant dreams. Memory is power. In Gravity Falls, some people decided to weaponize that power against the town's own citizens. The Society of the Blind Eye is revealed in the episode of the same name. It's a secret organization founded by Fiddleford McGucket after his traumatic experience with the interdimensional portal. McGucket saw something on the other side, something so terrible that he couldn't bear to remember it. So he invented a solution: a memory-erasing gun. The device, based on technology McGucket encountered during his time working with Ford, could selectively remove memories. McGucket used it on himself, erasing the horrors he'd witnessed. It worked. He felt better. The terror was gone. But he couldn't stop there. McGucket began erasing memories from others. Anyone who witnessed something supernatural in Gravity Falls, anyone who had experiences they couldn't explain, McGucket and his society would find them and make them forget. They told themselves they were helping, that the townspeople were happier not knowing, that the truth was too dangerous for ordinary people to handle. This is, of course, a violation. Taking someone's memories without consent is a form of assault, even if it's done with good intentions. The society stripped people of their experiences, their growth, their ability to understand their own world. And the irony is brutal. McGucket used the gun so many times on himself that he eventually lost his mind entirely. The local kook, the crazy old man everyone dismissed, was once a genius scientist. He erased that person piece by piece until only fragments remained. When Dipper and Mabel discover the society, they find a room full of memory tubes, each one containing the erased recollections of a Gravity Falls resident. Hundreds of people, maybe thousands, had their experiences stolen. The town was collectively gaslighted for decades. The twins destroy the society. They expose its members, recover McGucket's memories, and presumably put an end to the erasure campaign. But the damage is done. All those stolen memories are gone, their original owners never knowing what they lost. Who were the other society members? The show introduces a few, including Blind Ivan, the current leader, but most remain anonymous, faceless figures in robes who participated in mass memory violation. After the society is exposed, they presumably return to normal life, carrying the guilt of what they did. Or maybe they don't feel guilty. Maybe they still believe they were helping. That's the danger of paternalistic thinking. The conviction that you know better, that others can't handle the truth, that protecting people from reality is a kindness. The Society of the Blind Eye is disbanded, but its legacy remains. The town of Gravity Falls has decades of missing memories, experiences that were stolen and can never be returned. The people affected will never know what they forgot. That's a different kind of horror than monsters or demons. It's a human horror perpetrated by people who thought they were doing good. We've mentioned Fiddleford Hadron McGucket several times, but he deserves a dedicated section. His story is one of the most emotionally complex in the entire series. When we first meet McGucket, he's the town kook. He lives in the dump. He speaks in nonsense. He builds bizarre contraptions like the Gobblewonker robot. He's comic relief, the crazy person every small town seems to have. But the show gradually reveals the truth. McGucket was once a brilliant scientist, Ford's partner in building the interdimensional portal. He was married, had a son, lived a successful life. Then he looked through the portal. What he saw broke him. We never learn exactly what McGucket witnessed. The show implies it was something connected to Bill Cipher, some glimpse of the chaos that would eventually become Weird Mageddon. Whatever it was, it destroyed McGucket's ability to cope with reality. His solution, the memory gun, was supposed to save him. Instead, it erased him. Each use took more of who he was until the brilliant scientist became the babbling fool the town dismissed. Society of the Blind Eye is McGucket's turning point. When Dipper and Mabel recover his memories, when he finally understands what happened to him, McGucket gets a chance to rebuild. He's still damaged, still struggling, but he knows who he was and who he can become. In the finale, McGucket is essential to defeating Bill's cipher. He's the one who designs the Shacktron, the giant mech built from the Mystery Shack. His genius, suppressed for decades, returns when it's needed most. After Weirdmageddon, McGucket's fortunes improve dramatically. He patents his inventions, sells them to the government, and becomes wealthy. He buys the Northwest Mansion from the now bankrupt Northwest family. He reconciles with his son Tate, who finally sees his father as the brilliant man he was. This is a genuine happy ending, rare in a show that loves bittersweet conclusions. McGucket suffered for decades, but he recovered. He used his gifts to help save the world. He got his family back, but the scars remain. McGucket will never fully recover what he lost. The memories are fragments, not complete restoration. The years he spent as the town kook can't be erased. He carries those experiences, that shame, that loneliness. McGucket's story is about trauma and recovery, about how the worst moments of our lives don't have to define us forever, about how it's never too late to rebuild, to contribute, to matter. He's one of Gravity Falls' most beloved characters because his arc is so complete. From joke to tragedy to triumph, McGucket earns his happy ending through suffering and perseverance. Every organization needs someone in charge. For the Society of the Blind Eye, that person was Blind Ivan. Ivan is the leader of the society when Dipper and Mabel discover it. He's earnest in his belief that they're helping people, that erasing memories is a kindness. He's also clearly dangerous, willing to turn the memory gun on anyone who threatens the society's secrets. We learn little about Ivan's background. He presumably encountered something supernatural, had his memories erased, and then was recruited into the society itself. The victims become perpetrators, a cycle of erasure that sustains itself. Ivan's name is appropriate. Blind reflects the society's willful ignorance, their choice to look away from reality. He can't see the harm they're causing because he's chosen not to see. When the society is exposed, Ivan loses everything. His purpose, his community, his certainty that he was doing good. What happens to him after that? The show doesn't say. Maybe Ivan is still in Gravity Falls, trying to rebuild his sense of self. Maybe he left, unable to face the people he hurt. Maybe he's still convinced he was right, nursing his grievances in secret. Or maybe he finally opened his eyes. Maybe seeing McGucket recover, seeing the town survive Weirdmageddon, showed him that people can handle the truth, that the supernatural doesn't have to be erased to be managed. Blind Ivan is a minor character, but he represents something important: the people who do harm while believing they're helping. He's not a monster. He's a person who made terrible choices for what he thought were good reasons. That's more common than we like to admit. Background characters in Gravity Falls often have hidden depths. Farmer Sprott is a perfect example. Sprott appears throughout the series as a generic farmer character, selling produce and animals at various town events. He seems unremarkable, just another Gravity Falls resident living an ordinary life. But look closer. Sprott has been in Gravity Falls for a long time. He's seen things. In crowd scenes, you can sometimes catch him looking nervous when supernatural events occur, suggesting he's aware that the town isn't normal. Was Sprott a victim of the Society of the Blind Eye? Did he have memories erased? Is that why he seems so determined to focus on ordinary things like farming, deliberately ignoring the weirdness around him? The show never confirms this, but the implication is there. Gravity Falls is full of people who've had experiences they can't remember, who feel unease without knowing why, who have gaps in their history that don't quite make sense. Sprott survives Weirdmageddon, appearing among the townspeople who help rebuild after Bill's defeat. He goes back to farming, back to selling produce, back to his ordinary life. Whatever secrets he carries, he keeps them to himself. Wendy Corduroy is one of the main characters, but her family often fades into the background. We've discussed Manly Dan and the ancestral ghost Archibald, but Wendy also has 3 younger brothers who barely get any screen time. The Corduroy Boys appear in a few episodes, usually as background characters. They're large for their age, taking after their father. They seem to share his love of physical activity and destruction. But we never learn their names, their personalities, or their individual stories. This is a deliberate choice. Gravity Falls focuses on the Pines family, and other families exist primarily in relation to them. The Corduroy brothers matter only insofar as they affect Wendy, and since Wendy's arc doesn't require her siblings, they remain undeveloped. But think about what those boys experienced. They grew up in Gravity Falls, surrounded by supernatural events. Their sister befriended dimensional travelers. Their town was nearly destroyed by an interdimensional demon. What are their perspectives on all this? Do they know about the weird things Wendy has seen? Do they have their own supernatural encounters that we never witnessed? Are they traumatized, excited, or just blissfully ignorant? After the show, the Corduroy brothers presumably continue growing up in Gravity Falls. They'll become lumberjacks like their father, probably. They'll live ordinary lives in an extraordinary town. Their stories will never be told. Every character has a life beyond what we see. The Corduroy brothers remind us of all the stories Gravity Falls didn't have time to tell. Here's a mystery that the show never addresses. Where are Dipper and Mabel's parents? We know they exist. The twins were sent to Gravity Falls for the summer by their parents, who live in Piedmont, California. They're mentioned occasionally, usually in passing, but they never appear on screen, never have speaking roles, never become characters in their own right. This is a classic trope in children's media. Parents are absent or minimized so that kids can have adventures. If mom and dad were around, they'd probably object to their children fighting demons and time traveling. Better to just not address it. But Gravity Falls is more sophisticated than most kids' shows. It usually acknowledges the implications of its premise, so the complete absence of Mr. and Mrs. Pines feels conspicuous. What do they know about Gravity Falls? Stan is their relative, presumably their uncle or something similar. Did they warn Dipper and Mabel about his reputation as a con artist? Did they know the town was weird, or did they send their kids there blindly? After Weird Mageddon, the twins return home. They've grown up significantly over the summer. They've faced mortal danger. They've saved the world. How do they explain this to parents who weren't there? The show's finale implies they don't. Dipper and Mabel keep their experiences private, treasuring them as shared secrets. Their parents remain in the dark, blissfully unaware that their children are heroes. This is somewhat sad. The Pines' parents missed the most important summer of their children's lives. They'll never fully understand who Dipper and Mabel have become. That distance, that gap in understanding, will always exist. But maybe that's appropriate. Growing up means having experiences your parents don't share. The twins' summer in Gravity Falls is theirs, a foundation for their adult lives that doesn't need parental validation. Mr. and Mrs. Pines remain the show's most prominent absence. Their characters defined entirely by their non-presence, by the space they don't occupy in their children's adventure. Mabel makes friends wherever she goes, but her closest companions in Gravity Falls are Candy Chew and Grenda Grendinator. Candy is sweet, shy, and wears thick glasses. She's intelligent and observant, often noticing things others miss. Grenda is loud, strong, and has a notably deep voice which she attributes to puberty. They're outsiders, girls who don't quite fit in with the popular crowd, and they find each other through Mabel's relentless friendliness. The three become inseparable. They have sleepovers, they share crushes, They support each other through the various crises that summer brings. When Weird Mageddon hits, Candy and Grenda are among the survivors in the Mystery Shack, fighting alongside the Pines family. But despite their importance to Mabel, Candy and Grenda rarely get their own storylines. They exist primarily as support characters, enhancing Mabel's scenes without having complete arcs of their own. We learn a few things about them. Candy's parents are Korean, and she speaks Korean at home. Grenda has a crush on the Austrian prince Marius von Funshauser, which actually works out for her by the series' end. But these are details, not full character studies. What are Candy's dreams? What does Grenda struggle with beyond her appearance? The show hints at depth without fully exploring it. After the summer ends, Mabel returns to California. Candy and Grenda presumably remain in Gravity Falls, their lives continuing without their best friend. They'll stay in touch, probably. They'll see each other next summer. But the intensity of that first friendship, forged in adventure and danger, can't be fully replicated at a distance. Candy and Grenda represent all the secondary friendships in our lives, the people who matter deeply in specific contexts but fade when circumstances change. They're not forgotten, but they're not central either. We've spent this hour with the society and its victims, the people who chose to forget and the people who were forced to, McGucket's tragedy and triumph, the blank spaces where memories should be. We've also met the background characters, the families and friends who populate Gravity Falls without commanding the spotlight. The absent parents, the forgotten siblings, the best friends who deserve their own stories. In the next hour, we'll explore the meta-mysteries of Gravity Falls, the codes and ciphers, the unanswered questions, the loose ends that the show deliberately left hanging. Rest now. Let the forgotten faces fade into the crowd. The deeper mysteries await. One of Gravity Falls' most persistent minor mysteries is Dipper's real name. Dipper is a nickname referring to the Big Dipper-shaped birthmark on his forehead. But what do his parents actually call him? The show teases this repeatedly. Documents with his name are partially obscured. Characters start to say it, but get interrupted. It becomes a running joke, a mystery that fans obsess over despite its ultimate unimportance. Journal 3, the physical book published after the show ended, finally revealed the answer. Mason. Dipper's real name is Mason Pines. This is a normal name. It explains why he prefers Dipper, which has more character than Mason. But the reveal was somewhat anticlimactic for fans who had theorized wildly about what the name might be. Alex Hirsch has said he always intended the name to be unremarkable. The joke was that fans were obsessing over something trivial while bigger mysteries remained unsolved. The real name was never the point. The anticipation was. This is classic Gravity Falls. The show rewards attention to detail, but it also mocks over-analysis. Not everything is a clue. Sometimes a hidden name is just a hidden name. Mason Pines goes by Dipper because Dipper is who he chose to be. That's the real story, hidden in plain sight. The opening credits of Gravity Falls contain a cryptic image, a wheel with 10 symbols arranged around Bill Cipher's form. Fans speculated endlessly about what it meant. The finale revealed the answer. The wheel is a prophecy, a way to defeat Bill Cipher. 10 specific people, each represented by a symbol, must join hands and complete a circle. This creates a human energy circuit that can banish Bill forever. The symbols make sense once you know them. Pine Tree is Dipper. Shooting Star is Mabel. Question mark is Suze. Crescent is Stan. Six-fingered hand is Ford. Ice bag is Wendy for staying cool under pressure. Glasses is McGucket. Llama is Pacifica, wearing Mabel's llama sweater. Bleeding Heart is Robbie. Star with Eye is Gideon. In the climax, these 10 people gather. They identify their symbols, they prepare to complete the prophecy, and then Stan and Ford start arguing. The brothers' lifelong conflict, their inability to put aside their grievances, breaks the circle before it can form. Bill attacks, scattering the group. The prophecy fails. This is devastating on multiple levels. The solution existed, the tools were assembled, everything was in place. And it failed because two stubborn old men couldn't stop fighting long enough to save the world. Bill is eventually defeated through Stan's sacrifice, erasing his own memory to trap Bill in his mind. It works, but at terrible cost. The prophecy offered a cleaner solution, one without sacrifice, and it was squandered. What would have happened if the circle had completed? Would Bill have been instantly destroyed? Banished to another dimension? The show never clarifies because the circle never formed. The wheel remains one of Gravity Falls' great what-ifs, a prophecy that predicted victory and was undone by human weakness. A reminder that having the solution doesn't mean you'll use it. As Bill Cipher is being erased from Stan's mind, he speaks backwards. When reversed, his words say, "AXOLOTL, my time has come to burn. I invoke the ancient power that I may return." This introduces a being called the Axolotl, something powerful enough that even Bill Cipher invokes its name in his final moments. The tie-in book Dipper and Mabel and the Curse of the Time Pirate's Treasure explores this further. In one scene, the twins encounter a cosmic axolotl who speaks in rhymes and seems to have power over time and existence. When asked about Bill Cipher, the axolotl says, 60 degrees that come in threes, watches from within birch trees, saw his own dimension burn, misses home and can't return, says he's happy, he's a liar, blame the arson for the fire. If he wants to shirk the blame, he'll have to invoke my name, one way to absolve his crime, a different form, a different time. This is dense with implications. Bill destroyed his own dimension. He regrets it, despite claiming otherwise. The axolotl can give him another chance, but only if Bill takes responsibility for what he did. He would return in a different form, a different time. Is Bill Cipher truly dead, or is he out there somewhere, transformed, waiting? The statue in the final shot suggests the latter. Bill's petrified physical form is shown in a real forest, and a hand reaches in to shake it. Alex Hirsch actually hid a real Bill statue in Oregon for fans to find. What happens when you shake hands with Bill Cipher? In the show, that's how deals are made. Is some unsuspecting person about to make a cosmic bargain with a demon's remains? The show ended without resolving this. Bill might be gone forever. Bill might return in 1,000 years. Bill might already be back, in a form we wouldn't recognize. This deliberate ambiguity is pure Gravity Falls. The show ended, but the story didn't. The mysteries continue and fans are left to wonder. Every episode of Gravity Falls contains hidden messages, cryptograms in the credits, symbols in the background, codes that require effort to decode. The show used 3 main cipher systems: the Caesar cipher, which shifts letters by 3, the Atbash cipher, which reverses the alphabet, and a symbol substitution cipher using Bill Cipher's wheel. Fans organized themselves into decoding communities, sharing discoveries and racing to solve each episode's secrets. This interactive element made Gravity Falls unique, transforming passive viewing into active participation. Many codes were solved. Stan is not what he seems. The original mystery twins. Hints about future plot developments, hidden months before they aired. But some codes remain mysterious. Background details that might be significant or might be nothing. Symbols that appear consistently but were never explained. The show rewarded attention, but it also included red herrings. After the show ended, fans continued searching. The real-world cipher hunt led thousands of people to actually find the Bill statue hidden in the Oregon woods. ARG websites contained additional codes and secrets. Are there still undiscovered messages in Gravity Falls? Probably. The show was dense enough that new details emerge on rewatches years later. The codes weren't just promotional gimmicks, they were part of the show's DNA. This commitment to hidden depth influenced an entire generation of animated shows. The idea that viewers should look closer, that rewards exist for the attentive, became standard practice. Gravity Falls taught its audience to be paranoid in the best way, to question everything, to look for meaning in places others ignore. That's a valuable lesson, even when the messages are just jokes about gnomes. Gravity Falls has been weird for a long time. The show implies that the town's supernatural nature predates European settlement, but it never fully explores this history. Cave paintings depicting Bill Cipher suggest that native peoples encountered him centuries ago. They had their own understanding of the forces at work, their own methods of protection or appeasement. But the show never explores this in depth. We see the paintings. We understand that Bill is ancient. But we don't meet any indigenous characters, don't hear their stories, don't learn what they knew. This is a significant gap. The indigenous history of the Pacific Northwest is rich and complex. A show about supernatural forces in Oregon that doesn't engage with native perspectives is missing something important. Was this a deliberate choice, avoiding appropriation by not engaging at all? Was it simply beyond the show's scope, a thread that couldn't be pulled within the available runtime? We don't know. What we do know is that Gravity Falls existed before Quentin Tremblay founded it, before the Northwest family built their mansion, before anyone we meet in the show was born. The weirdness is older than recorded history. Someone understood this weirdness before Ford or Dipper or anyone else. Someone lived with it, perhaps mastered it. Their knowledge is lost, erased by colonization, by the society of the blind eye, by simple forgetting. This is the show's deepest mystery, one it never tries to solve. What did the original inhabitants of Gravity Falls know, and where did that knowledge go? Stanford Pines spent 30 years trapped in other dimensions after falling through the portal. 30 years of wandering through realities we can barely imagine. The show gives us glimpses. Ford mentions fighting strange creatures. He shows scars from his travels. He has equipment and knowledge acquired during his dimensional exile. He's clearly been through things that changed him, but 30 years is an entire additional lifetime. What happened during all that time? We know Ford was searching for a way to defeat Bill Cipher. He encountered other civilizations, other beings who knew about the Dream Demon. He became an interdimensional outlaw, wanted in multiple realities, but the specifics remain unknown. What worlds did Ford visit? What friends did he make and lose? What horrors did he witness? What wonders? Journal 3 provides some additional details, but even it can't cover 30 years of adventures. Ford's exile is a story that could fill dozens of episodes, an entire series of its own. Alex Hirsch has said he has ideas about Ford's adventures, but chose not to elaborate. The mystery is more interesting than any specific answer. Ford's past is deliberately vague, allowing viewers to imagine whatever they find most compelling. This is frustrating for fans who want concrete answers. But it's also honest. Some stories are better left untold, some mysteries are better left mysterious. Ford's 30 years belong to him. We know they happened. We know they shaped who he became. The details are his to keep. The show ends with flash forwards. Sue's running the Mystery Shack, Stan and Ford sailing the world, investigating other anomalies. The twins returning for another summer. But what happens after that? Years later? Decades? Dipper clearly wants to continue investigating the supernatural. He's inherited Ford's passion for mystery. Will he become a paranormal researcher? Will he return to Gravity Falls permanently? Mabel's path is less clear. She's creative and social, interested in art and people. The supernatural attracted her attention, but it's not her calling the way it is for Dipper. What does her future look like? Stan and Ford are old. They're enjoying retirement together, but they're mortal. Someday they'll be gone, and the younger generation will have to carry on without them. How will Dipper and Mabel handle that loss? And what about Gravity Falls itself? The weirdness persists. New threats will emerge. Someone will have to deal with them. Will the town develop its own defenses, or will it always rely on outsiders stumbling into its secrets? The show ended without answering these questions because they're unanswerable. The future is unwritten. The characters will face challenges we can't predict. Their stories continue, even if we're no longer watching. This is the gift of good storytelling. Characters who feel alive even when the story stops. We believe Dipper and Mabel have futures because they feel like real people. We wonder about them because we care about them. Gravity Falls ended. The Pines family didn't. That's enough. We've spent this hour with the questions that have no answers. The trivial mysteries and the profound ones. The codes we solved and the depths we never reached. Gravity Falls was built on mystery. It rewarded curiosity while acknowledging that some things can't be known. The show ended with loose ends because life has loose ends. Stories don't wrap up neatly. Questions persist. In our final hour, we'll bring it all together. The legacy of Gravity Falls. The meaning behind the madness. The reasons this weird little show about a weird little town continues to resonate years after it ended. Rest now. Let the unanswered questions settle into comfortable uncertainty. The end is near, but it's not really an ending. Nothing in Gravity Falls ever truly ends. We've spent 7 hours cataloging the forgotten characters, the unanswered questions, the loose ends and hidden depths of Gravity Falls. Now, in this final hour, let's ask the bigger question. What does it all mean? Gravity Falls was a show about summer, about that specific irreplaceable time when childhood starts to end, when you're old enough to have real adventures but young enough to still believe in magic. Dipper and Mabel Pines arrived in Gravity Falls as children. They left as teenagers, transformed by what they'd experienced. The supernatural adventures were metaphors for the challenges of growing up, facing fears, accepting uncertainty, learning that the world is stranger and more complicated than you thought. The forgotten characters we've discussed aren't just loose ends. They're reminders that the world is bigger than any one story. Gravity Falls was full of people and creatures with their own lives, their own struggles, their own narratives happening just outside the frame. This is how real towns work. Everyone is the protagonist of their own story. The person serving your coffee has dreams and fears and a past you'll never know. The neighbor you wave to is living a life as complex as yours. By populating Gravity Falls with so many distinct characters, the show created a world that felt lived in. Even characters who appeared once felt like they had histories, futures, existences beyond their screen time. Memory is central to Gravity Falls. The Society of the Blind Eye erased memories. McGucket destroyed himself trying to forget. Stan lost his memories defeating Bill, then regained them through love. The show argues that memory, even painful memory, is precious. The society thought they were helping by making people forget trauma. Instead, they were stealing something irreplaceable, the ability to learn from experience. McGucket's recovery is powerful because he reclaims his past. He doesn't just remember facts, he remembers who he was. The genius, the scientist, the person who mattered. Those memories were part of him, and losing them meant losing himself. Stan's sacrifice works because memory is depicted as the core of identity. Erasing Stan's mind should have killed him in every meaningful sense. But Mabel's scrapbook brings him back, proving that memory can be rebuilt, that love is stronger than erasure. The forgotten characters of Gravity Falls are still remembered by someone. Pacifica remembers Mermando. Dipper remembers the shapeshifter. Suze remembers Giffany. These experiences shape them, even if we don't see the shaping on screen. Memory is what makes us who we are. Gravity Falls understood this and made it central to its themes. Family is complicated in Gravity Falls. Stan and Ford spent 30 years estranged. Pacifica's parents were abusive. McGucket lost connection with his son. Suze's father abandoned him. But family also saves people. Stan's love for Ford motivated his 30-year quest to rescue him. Mabel's scrapbook restored Stan's memories. The Pines family, including their found members like Suze and Wendy, formed the resistance against Bill. The show argues that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who stay, who fight for each other. Suze isn't related to the Pines, but he's family. Wendy isn't either, but she belongs with them. This expanded definition of family is hopeful. It suggests that people can find belonging even if their biological families fail them. That chosen relationships can be as meaningful as inherited ones. The forgotten characters often lacked this family support. The Summerween trickster was alone. Giffany was obsessed precisely because she had no real connections. The creatures of the forest live solitary lives, unknown and uncared for. Maybe that's why they were forgotten. Without family to remember them, to keep their stories alive, they faded into the background of Gravity Falls history. Every major character in Gravity Falls changes. Dipper becomes braver. Mabel becomes wiser. Stan opens up emotionally. Ford learns humility. Pacifica breaks free from her parents. Robbie finds love. McGucket reclaims his genius. The forgotten characters often didn't get this chance. They appeared, made their impact, and vanished before they could grow. The Summerween trickster found peace in his final moments, but never got to experience what came after peace. Mermando moved on immediately after his escape. The villains were defeated before they could be redeemed. This is realistic. Not everyone gets a complete arc. Not everyone changes. Some people appear in our lives, make an impression, and disappear, their stories continuing without us. But the show's main characters prove that growth is possible, that people can become better versions of themselves, that the weird, awkward kid can become a hero, that the bitter old man can become a loving brother. This is Gravity Falls' most hopeful message. Change is possible. Growth is possible. The person you are today isn't the person you have to be tomorrow. Gravity Falls loves mystery. The codes, the hidden meanings, the questions without answers. The show rewards attention and rewards curiosity. But it also acknowledges the limits of knowledge. Some mysteries can't be solved. Some questions don't have answers. The need to know everything can become unhealthy, as Ford learned when his curiosity led him to Bill's cipher. The forgotten characters embody this tension. We want to know what happened to them. We want their stories completed. But the show denies us that completion, just as life often does. Real mysteries don't come with neat resolutions. People leave our lives without explanations. Questions go unanswered. The universe doesn't owe us closure. Gravity Falls taught its audience to embrace this uncertainty, to enjoy the search for answers without requiring that answers be found, to find meaning in the journey, not just the destination. The forgotten characters are still out there, somewhere in the fictional world of Gravity Falls. Their stories continue without us. We can imagine what happens next, but we'll never know for sure. That's okay. That's how it should be. There's something comforting about Gravity Falls. Despite the demons and monsters and apocalypses, the show feels warm, safe somehow. Part of this is the animation style. the character designs, the humor that undercuts the horror. But part of it is something deeper, the show's conviction that the weird can be wonderful. The creatures of Gravity Falls are strange, but most of them aren't evil. The multi-bear just wants to enjoy pop music. The gnomes are annoying, but not malicious. Even the dangerous creatures are dangerous the way wild animals are dangerous, not the way villains are. The world is full of things we don't understand. Gravity Falls suggests that's okay. That mystery isn't inherently threatening, that the weird can be beautiful, fascinating, even friendly. This is a comforting message in an age of anxiety. The unknown doesn't have to be terrifying, sometimes it's just strange, and strange isn't bad. The forgotten characters of Gravity Falls are out there, living their strange lives. The multi-bear is playing Disco Girl. Mermando is ruling his underwater kingdom. The Lilliputians are fighting their endless war. The world is full of weirdness, happening whether we notice it or not. And that's kind of wonderful, isn't it? Gravity Falls ended in 2016, but its influence continues. The show proved that children's animation could be complex, serialized, and intellectually challenging. It showed that young audiences could handle dark themes and ambiguous endings. Shows like Amphibia, The Owl House, and Infinity Train followed in Gravity Falls' footsteps, telling serialized stories with emotional depth. The current golden age of animated television owes something to Alex Hirsch's weird little show about a weird little town. The show also created a dedicated fandom that persists years after the finale. People still analyze episodes, still decode secrets, still create fan content. The Cypher Hunt brought thousands of fans together to find a real-world treasure. The community that formed around Gravity Falls remains active. This is the mark of something special. Shows end, but great shows create communities that outlast them. Gravity Falls didn't just entertain people, it connected them. The forgotten characters are part of this legacy. They give fans something to speculate about, to discuss, to imagine. The gaps in the narrative aren't flaws, they're invitations. The show created a world big enough for fans to explore on their own. We've come to the end of our journey through the forgotten faces of Gravity Falls. We've met villains who appeared and vanished, creatures who lived and died in single episodes, townspeople who populated the background without ever stepping into the spotlight, visitors from time and space who made their impact and moved on. We've asked questions that will never be answered. What happened to the real Gobblewonker? Is Giffany truly destroyed? Where is Blendin Blandin now? Will Bill Cipher return? We've explored themes of memory and family, growth and mystery. We've found meaning in the gaps, significance in the absences, stories in the silence. Gravity Falls was a show about one weird summer, but it created a world that extends far beyond that summer. A world full of creatures and characters, histories and futures, mysteries that persist even now. The Pines family went home. But Gravity Falls is still there. The Mystery Shack is still standing, now run by Suze. The forest is still full of creatures. The town is still attracting weirdness like a magnet attracts iron. And somewhere, in the margins of that weird little town, the forgotten characters continue their forgotten lives. The Summerween trickster's candy might be reforming. The shapeshifter is still frozen, still waiting. The hide-behind is still watching from just outside your vision. They don't need us to remember them. They exist regardless. But there's something beautiful about acknowledging them, about saying you mattered. You were part of this story. Even if your role was small, even if your time was brief, you contributed to something meaningful. Every character in Gravity Falls, remembered or forgotten, helped create that world. The main characters get the glory, but the background characters make the world feel real. So here's to the forgotten, the one-episode wonders, the background extras, the monsters and townspeople and visitors who appeared and vanished. Your stories weren't fully told, but they were told enough. And in a world full of mysteries, that's all any of us can hope for. Let your mind rest now. Let the weird creatures and forgotten faces fade into the peaceful darkness of sleep. If you ever find yourself in Oregon, look for a town that isn't on any map. Listen for the sound of strange creatures in the forest. Keep your eyes open for things that don't make sense. Gravity Falls is out there, somewhere, and its mysteries are waiting for anyone curious enough to seek them. Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold, buy. Good night. Sleep well, and remember, in Gravity Falls, nothing is ever truly forgotten. It's just waiting to be remembered.